All right, welcome to Blue Diamond Sales and Rentals with Samantha Easton. I'm Mary Goulet, your host. And today we're going to be talking about the 4 things to look for when hiring a property manager. Now, you might not think that's very important, but it is. All right, Samantha, tell us why, at least surface-wise, it's important to make sure you get the right property manager. I'm thinking maybe because you're going to have an extended time period working with them?
Definitely. And it is one of your best investments. You know, one of the biggest investments people make is their investment property. So if you're just going to hand it over to somebody, you really want them to be a professional.
Okay, so you've been doing this for how long?
Over 14 years.
Oh my goodness. All right, so you've seen the good, the bad, the ugly.
Oh, yes.
And wanted to just crawl into a corner and shut the world off and not deal with them anymore.
Yeah, sometimes, but you can't do that.
Right. Okay, so give us number 1.
So number 1 would be availability. They really should be answering their phone or at least calling you back within a reasonable amount of time. 24 hours, I would say, at least.
I'm an impatient person, and I think if you do not get a call back within 24 hours, absolutely, that's a red flag.
Absolutely. Yeah. They should be responsive because they are in charge of tenants' well-being and the home, the safety of the home.
Yeah. And I know because I sell real estate and I do some property management. I had somebody reach out to me, didn't know who they were. They left a voicemail. I called them back and they said, "Oh, we're looking to sell my mom's home." And I said, "Okay, I'm happy to talk with you." And, you know, and then further in the conversation, "Have you talked to anyone else?" "Well, I've called a couple people, but you're the only one who called back."
Right. That's how I got a lot of my clients too, because I would answer the phone. So they would say I was the only one that actually answered on their first call.
Instead of just going to a voicemail, and
Right.
It's so annoying because you fall into this void, and then it gives the impression that I guess my business is not that important to them.
Right. Or I mean, and also you think, well, what if there is an emergency and they're not answering their phone? So I think it's super important as a property manager to be available.
Okay, and number 2?
Number 2, when they go to your house, are they actually looking and inspecting the home the first time they see it? Are they paying attention to any potential issues? So I would want somebody to come with an inspection sheet and actually kind of go down and have a list of safety features they're looking for or any issues that they see that they might want to address before a tenant goes in the property.
Okay, so as a property manager, in the beginning, did you think that they may have perceived that to be presumptive on your part, or that you're just purely a professional? You're walking in with your clipboard with these items, you know, which appliances do you have? How old are they? What's the layout of the property? Do you have the proper safety things like smoke alarms and right?
Yes.
So all of those things. And then have you ever had somebody stop you in the middle of doing that procedure, or they were cool and gained more confidence in you?
Actually the opposite. They want to go through their house with me. Nobody's ever stopped me from going through and looking at their home and providing them with that information. In fact, some people didn't even know where some of their water shutoffs were or circuit breakers were, just because it might be an investment property and they never cared to really need to know that. They never thought they needed to know that. But when you do that, then you're showing that you actually are going to be there and be available and be able to say to the tenant, okay, the water shut off is to the left of the garage. Go do that right now if they're having a flood. So there's a lot of things that will help the property manager respond quickly. So if they're not doing that and they're just looking for whether or not it's, you know, upgraded, then they're not really looking for your best interest.
Okay, good point. Number 3.
Hidden fees. Transparency with fees, I think, is really important. There's a lot of times where we see that might be a lower monthly management fee, but there's a hidden fee. Like if there's a repair call, are they going to charge you $50? Are they going to charge you for after-hour calls? Are they going to charge you if the tenant moves out and they have to find a new tenant? All of those things should be lined out in the management agreement and will be, but are they explaining that to you?
Right. So when you're talking about them signing a property management agreement and you have those things listed, do you actually go through each point so that they completely understand? If there is an upfront onboarding, if you will,
right,
fee, and then when you have something that's not a major expense, what level do they have to be aware that you're able to charge for without getting a major approval from them, like small things, nominal?
Right. Yeah. So there should be a limit for that. And then there also should be, for any specific thing, it all should be lined out. If they're charging for anything other than a management fee or a startup fee, that should be explained. I mean, everything should be explained.
Yes.
And to me,
I think if you're a property manager, you want to have everything, like rip off the Band-Aid, call them. You've got a leaking faucet. I need to get the plumber out or whatever that might be. And the estimate is $125.
Right.
You don't want to do anything, tell them afterward.
Right. And in this day and age, you can communicate via text or email or anything. So I do think communication is key. And maybe having kind of a rough idea on how much something might cost, especially for the bigger ticket items. Water heater, you could say, hey, it's going to be about $1,500, maybe up to $2,000, depending on the size. But yeah, having a good idea about that and even talking to your vendors about, hey, how much do you think this is going to cost? So I can at least preempt the conversation with them.
Right, exactly. Okay, and then your fourth idea, tip.
Oh, so good old lockboxes.
Oh, okay.
I personally think that if a property manager is not going to meet a tenant in person, so if they're not willing to take the time to walk a property with a potential new tenant, that can be very dangerous because you really do want to kind of vet people in person. There's also your gut that you're using to ensure that, they are who they say they are. Because you could walk a property with somebody, they could give you a driver's license, but if that doesn't match the person you just met, then that's a red flag. So I just think giving out, not being there and not showing a property in person, I think that's a little bit on the lazy side, and they really should be there. I
just can't imagine telling a potential tenant, here's the lockbox code, go check it out for yourself.
I know maybe it doesn't happen as much anymore. But
okay.
Yeah, maybe. When I first got into this, there wasn't a lot of us that were doing this, but I did notice that people were shocked that I was actually there to show them homes. So in the beginning.
Yeah.
So I don't know how it is really now, but I do think that being there and actually meeting potential tenants is super important.
Well, it was interesting. I met a tenant and they loved it and they were moving in, and she turned and asked me, so who do I contact if I ever need something? Right. And I'm like, raised my hand. That would be me. She goes, oh, good. I'm so relieved.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I was the one that made the contact with her. Right. I walked her through the whole property. I showed her how to work the equipment, whatever it might be. And she just the other day texted me, like you mentioned, hey, the kitchen faucet doesn't rotate anymore and the 2 bathroom sinks aren't draining properly. No problem. This is the person's going to call you. Come over and do it. And instilling that confidence, not just in the landlord, the property owner, but in the tenant.
Right. Yes. Yeah. You're their contact person. So to have a face for you and have an actual, real conversation, not necessarily just about the rental property, but about who they are, you are developing relationships with people.
And then do you also take into consideration their story? For instance, this particular couple put their home on the market, but the one that they purchased wouldn't be ready, so they had a 5-month gap.
Okay.
And so they moved into this house. But then I also got that gut read. I never met the husband, but I got the gut read on the mom and the adult daughter who lives nearby. And if something comes across as funky, it is.
Right. Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't have to be a genius to read the tea leaves. Like, yeah, you're sketch.
Yeah.
It's like
exactly. And sometimes those stories, I mean, people will feed you a ton of story and a sob story. And then you have to look at paper and you have to be able to differentiate. You know, I think that's where some landlords fall into a problem when they're not using a property manager who's looking at how good they are on paper, because our heartstrings get pulled and people know how to pull those heartstrings and tell you their story, and they really need to move in this place and they've got to move in tomorrow and I don't have time to do that background check. Well, there's a problem there.
There is, exactly.
And we can talk about that because I do have a new story that I just got called about that exact same situation.
All right, well, let's hold that one for our next episode. Okay, you've been listening to Samantha Easton and myself, Mary Goulet. Samantha and I are both with Blue Diamond Sales and Rentals, talking about property management, property sales, and all the crazy kind of stuff we can run into. All right, we'll be back with another episode.